Karen's belt hit a mirror. My quiet 5-year-old shook as she held her bunny tight. "Your kid's signs are garbage," the HOA mean lady screamed. My hands were shaking, but I work as a lawyer who catches bad guys. Her meanness made me really mad. Myra's quiet crying will be paid back. Karen's time being boss ends now. She'll ask me to stop being mean to her. Before watching the whole story, write below where you're watching from. Also, hit like and follow for more stories. The snap of a belt, cutting through the air, broke the quiet evening. I stopped moving at my kitchen window. My coffee cup fell from my hand and broke on the floor. Outside in our little front yard, my 5-year-old daughter Mira was scared, holding her stuffed bunny. Her quiet voice couldn't scream, but her big, scared eyes were asking for help. Karen, the HOA boss lady, stood over her with an angry face. The leather belt in her hand shined under the streetlight as she hit it down on Myra's little arm. A small whimper came from my daughter's mouth, the only sound she could make. "Stop that hand-moving stuff," Karen yelled, her voice mean and nasty. "You're making this neighborhood look bad." I ran outside, my heart beating really fast like a drum. "Karen, get away from her!" I yelled, running across the grass. Mira ran to me, her little body shaking as she hit her face in my shirt. Her bunny fell on the grass, forgotten. Karen turned around, her eyes cold like ice. "This kid's a problem," she said in a mean way. "Her weird hand movements scare my dog and her toys make the yard messy. Someone's got to teach her how to act right." "She's 5!" I yelled, holding Mira closer. "You're hitting a little kid!" Karen smiled in a mean way, spinning the belt around. "I'm keeping this place perfect. You should say thank you." My blood felt hot, but I didn't try to hit her. I'm a lawyer who works for the government catching criminals, people like Karen. Fighting with my hands would only make her stronger. Instead, I picked up Myra's bunny and carried her inside. Her quiet tears made my chest wet. Each tear hurt, my heart like a knife. That night when I put her to bed, her little hands moved to say, "Why does she hate me?" I felt really sad and used my hands to say back, "She doesn't know how special you are. I'll make this right, Mira. I promise." I couldn't sleep. Karen's meanness played in my head like a bad dream. We'd moved to this quiet neighborhood 2 years ago after my wife died in a car crash. Mira, born without a voice, was my whole world, smart, curious, and kind. Even though she couldn't talk, she spoke with her hands, moving them like pretty butterflies. Everyone loved her except Karen. As HOA boss, Karen acted like a mean queen, giving people tickets for tiny things like bushes that weren't cut or wrong paint colors. But picking on Mira, that was personal, and I'd make sure she got in trouble for it. Inside, I was falling apart. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Myra's scared face, her hands stopped in the middle of moving. I'd failed to keep her safe. As a lawyer, I'd put away murderers and thieves, but I couldn't stop a neighbor from hurting my daughter. The guilt felt really heavy, but it made me want to fight back. Karen didn't know who I was. She saw me as a quiet, single dad, easy to push around. She was wrong. The next morning, I started my plan. I began by talking to neighbors, knocking on doors while Mira stayed with my sister Emily. Most were scared to talk. Karen's mean rule had made them quiet, but some told me their stories, talking softly with worried eyes. Mrs. Patel, an old woman with nice eyes, whispered, "She made me pay $300 because my roses were too bright. I saw her hit Mira last week, but I was too scared to say anything. She said she'd report my son's car as junk." Mr. Thompson, a retired teacher, shook his head. "She yelled at my grandson for skateboarding, said it made our houses worth less money. She's been hitting your daughter for weeks." I should have said something. Their stories made me angrier, but I stayed calm. Getting upset wouldn't win this fight. Proof would. I looked up local laws. Hitting a child, even with a belt, was against the law. Karen wasn't just a bully. She was a criminal. I put up 2 hidden cameras, one in a fake birdhouse, another by the front steps. They turned on when they saw movement, recording everything. I hated spying, but Myra's safety was most important. For 4 days, I watched Karen's daily routine. Every evening, she walked around the neighborhood, belt in hand, looking for rule breaking. On Friday, it happened again. Mira was playing with chalk on our driveway, drawing flowers. Karen ran over yelling about messing up property. The cameras caught it all. Karen lifting the belt, Mira getting scared, the leather hitting her shoulder. My hands made fists, but I had proof now. I took Mira to a kid's doctor the next day. The doctor looked at her, seeing purple bruises on her arms, back, and shoulders. "These are from getting hit many times," she said, her voice tight with anger. The report had lots of details that couldn't be argued with. I told the police, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. Karen had bragged about her brother being a local cop. I needed to be smarter than her. At work, I dug deeper. Using public records, I found Karen's past. 12 years ago, she'd been charged with hurting someone in another state, but got away because of a legal trick. She'd moved here, changed her name a little, and started over. I also found HOA complaints she'd hidden. Dozens of them about unfair tickets and threats. She wasn't unbeatable. She was sloppy. I called an emergency neighborhood meeting, something Karen couldn't stop without looking suspicious. The community center was packed. 60 neighbors squeezed into a small room. Karen sat in the front, arms crossed, smiling like she couldn't be touched. Mira stayed home with Emily. I didn't want her near this fight. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice steady even though I was angry inside. "This is about Karen Mitchell, our HOA president, and how she uses her power wrong." Karen's smile went away. "What's this nonsense?" she snapped, standing up. "It's about you beating my daughter," I said. People gasped and made surprised sounds. I connected my laptop to a big screen and played the video. The screen showed Karen hitting Mira, her belt swinging as my daughter got scared and small. Neighbors gasped. Mrs. Patel covered her face, tears running down. Mr. Thompson made fists with his hands. "This is Mira," I said, my voice shaking but clear. "She's 5. She can't talk. She's never hurt anyone, and you, Karen, have been hurting her for weeks." Karen's face turned red. "That's fake. You changed it." I held up the doctor's report. "This says something different. So do these." I handed out copies of the hidden HOA complaints. Neighbors whispered, their shock turning to anger. "You made me pay $500 because my fence was too tall by 1 inch, a young mom shouted. "You said you'd sue me over my Christmas lights," another neighbor yelled. Karen's eyes looked around, searching for friends. She found none. I stepped closer. "I'm a government lawyer, Karen. I know the law. You've hurt a child, abused kids, and broken HOA rules. You're finished." She laughed, but it sounded shaky. "You can't touch me. My brother's a cop." "Not anymore," I said. I checked. Her brother was suspended for being crooked. Her protection was gone. I turned to the crowd. The HOA rules let us remove her with a 2/3 vote. "Who's with me?" Hands shot up. Mrs. Patel stood, her voice shaking. "For Mira! For Mira!" Mr. Thompson said the same thing. The vote was everyone saying yes. Karen screamed, throwing her clipboard, but 3 neighbors walked her out. The room cheered. But I wasn't done. I wanted justice, not just for Mira, but for everyone Karen had bullied. Over the next week, I built a case. I sent the video, doctor's report, and neighbor stories to the state HOA watching board. I also sent the hitting evidence to my co-workers at the government level. Child abuse was a serious charge, and Karen's history made it worse. I dug deeper, finding bank records showing she'd stolen thousands in HOA ticket money for personal use. Stealing money, another crime. Myra's pain stayed with her. She stopped playing outside, too scared to leave the house. At night, she'd wake up, moving her hands fast to say, "Is she coming back?" Her bad dreams broke my heart. I'd hold her, promising she was safe. But her fear was a weight I couldn't lift by myself. I took her to a kids' feelings doctor, Miss Carter, who helped kids who'd been hurt. Miss Carter taught me ways to help, like drawing her feelings. Slowly, Myra's pictures changed from dark scribbles to colorful flowers, but her happiness was still dim. I promised I'd bring it back. The neighborhood helped in ways I hadn't expected. Mrs. Patel baked cookies for Mira, leaving them on our front steps with a note, "You're stronger than you know." Mr. Thompson organized a chalk drawing party for the kids, turning our street into a rainbow of colors. Mira joined, scared at first, then smiled, moving her hands to say pretty as she drew a butterfly. Other neighbors helped too. A young couple, the Garces, brought Mira a new art book. "We saw what happened," Mrs. Garcia said. "We're on your side." But the guilt ate at me. I'd been so focused on my cases at work, drug dealers, cheaters, that I'd missed the monster next door. Myra's bruises were my failure. Late at night, I'd sit in my office looking at her drawings, promising myself I'd never let her down again. I put that guilt into the case, working late to make sure every detail was perfect. Karen wouldn't get away this time. Karen's arrest came 10 days later. Police cars drove into her driveway, lights flashing. Neighbors watched from their front steps as she was handcuffed, screaming about her rights. The charges were big: hurting someone, hitting, putting a child in danger, and stealing money. Her HOA tricks fell apart, showing she'd taken over $20,000 from people living there. The news spread, and more neighbors came forward with stories: tickets for noisy wind chimes, threats over kids' toys. Karen's kingdom of fear was falling down. The trial was quick but full of feelings. I told my story, showing the video and doctor's report. Mira didn't have to appear. Her silence spoke through the proof. Neighbors told their stories too. Their voices were strong. Mrs. Patel told about Karen's threats against her family. Mr. Thompson described how she bullied his grandson. The prosecutor, someone I worked with, showed the money-stealing evidence. Bank statements showing Karen's fancy vacations paid for by HOA money. The judge, a serious woman with no patience for bullies, sentenced Karen to 5 years in jail and ordered her to pay money back, including Myra's therapy costs. As Karen was led away in handcuffs, she stared at me with hate in her eyes. I stared back, not looking away. She'd hurt my daughter, and now she'd pay. Myra's getting better took time. Miss Carter worked with her every week, using art and hand language to build back her confidence. One day, Mira drew a picture of our house with her and me holding hands, under a bright sun. "Safe," she moved with her hands, her eyes bright. It was the first time I cried since the bad stuff began. I put the drawing in a frame, hanging it in our living room as a reminder of her strength. The neighborhood changed. We chose Mrs. Patel as HOA president. She was kind, fair, and loved by everyone. Tickets stopped and rules became easier. Kids played freely, their laughter echoing through the streets. Mr. Thompson started a weekly story time at the community center where Mira sat in the front, moving her hands along with the tales. The Garcas had barbecues, inviting everyone. Our street felt alive again, like a family. One evening, 2 months later, we had a neighborhood picnic. Tables lined the street, covered with food, flowers, and Myra's drawings displayed proudly. She ran around with other kids, moving her hands and laughing silently. Mrs. Patel hugged me, tears in her eyes. "You saved us all," she said. "No," I said, watching Mira draw a heart in the air. She did. That night on our front steps, Mira moved her hands to say, "Is she really gone?" Yes, I moved my hands, pulling her close. "You're safe forever." She hugged me, her bunny tucked under her arm. The sky glowed orange, peaceful. Mira moved her hands to say, "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too." I moved my hands, my heart full. Justice wasn't just a word, it was real. Mira was free. Karen was gone. And our neighborhood was home again. But the real victory was Myra's smile.